And at 10, Cassandra Cain. Cassandra Cain is the 4th Batgirl. Born with the assassin David Cain and Lady Shiva as her parents, she was trained to become the perfect warrior. Her father deprived her of speech so that she would learn movement and physicality as her first language. Batman adopted her into the Batman family during No Man's Land to replace Helena Bertinelli as Batgirl. Cassandra would eventually turn her Batgirl costume over to Stephanie Brown and become a member of Batman Incorporated as Black Bat. Trained by her father to be the ultimate weapon, Cassandra was not taught to speak. Instead, her father relied mostly on actions to communicate with her. He also cut her off from the outside world, only exposing her to anything or anyone other than him when absolutely necessary. As a result, the parts of her brain normally used for speech and language processing were trained so that she could read other people's movements and body language to recognize their thoughts without verbal communication, and predict with uncanny accuracy their next move in a fight. This also caused her brain to develop learning functions different from most, so it's like a form of dyslexia that hampers her ability to talk, read, and write. And at 9, Beast Boy. Beast Boy's parents, Mark and Mary Logan, were geneticists that would travel the jungles of the world to study their wildlife. Beast Boy was brought up in the jungles of Brazil, Africa, India, and several other places. The Logans became particularly interested in a rare species of green monkey, which honestly I understand. But the day they finally found them, something terrible happened. Beast Boy was bitten by one of these monkeys and contracted a serious illness called cicudia. To save him, his parents attempted to cure him with a new serum, which bestowed him with his iconic shape-changing abilities, and as a side effect, his skin, hair, and eyes all turned green. Beast Boy was originally the youngest member of Doom Patrol, however revealed in Homecoming, Mento's harsh discipline and less than encouraging attitude finally alienated him from his surrogate family, and he stuck out on his own. Looking for a new place to live, he came to Jump City, where he encountered Robin, Starfire, Raven, and Cyborg. Afterwards, the 5 formed a new team of their own, the Teen Titans. And at 8, Aqualad. Operating as Aqualad by his king's side as the first leader of the Teen Titans, he briefly worked under deep cover as the loyal lieutenant of his father, Black Manta, to bring down the Light and their partner. Eventually, King Orin retired his heroic duties and Calder took over the mantle of Aquaman, joined the Justice League, and became their leader by July of 2018. In February 2019, he officially stepped down as their leader, and Aqualad eagerly expected to become a member of the Justice League alongside Speedy, Robin, and Kid Flash. However, when it became clear that that wasn't happening, he decided to accompany Robin and Kid Flash to investigate Cadmus Labs. There they found the Genomorph Project and Superboy, whom they liberated. Aqualad, Kid Flash, and Robin set off on an unsanctioned mission to protect CEO Selena Gonzalez from the League of Shadows, but despite their best efforts, Gonzalez still vanished. And at 7, Miss Martian. When she first came to Earth, Miss Martian was a bubbly, exceptionally sweet, polite, and caring individual, although occasionally shy young Martian girl who longed to fit in on Earth and become a member of a team. However, being from Mars and having never really interacted with humans before, she was frequently unfamiliar with Earth's customs. She felt especially uncomfortable with her telepathy, as on Mars it's the prime form of communication, but on Earth it's not really a thing. But she was also quite inexperienced, but eager to please. By 2016, she had become considerably more serious, but still retained her caring side. She's become more experienced and adept at using her powers, and isn't afraid to use extreme measures to exact information. As a shapeshifter, she can model her appearance to her desire, which is usually that of a green-skinned female humanoid based on Mary Logan as a teenager, with amber eyes and shoulder-length red hair. Though after 5 years she now keeps her hair shorter at length, but it still grows longer over the months, which she must be doing consciously, because she's a shapeshifter. It's because the hair won't naturally grow if you're just pretending it exists. So she has to be consciously slowly growing her hair, which is interesting to me. And at 6, Tara Markov. Also known as Tara, had manifested the ability to manipulate Earth. She can levitate Earth, manipulate its shape and configuration, like raising the floor to make a shield, or alter its state, like turn hard Earth into a substance similar to quicksand. So basically she's the DC version of an earthbender. Tara was a child when her powers emerged. Markov's parents freaked out though and thought that she was possessed by evil. She was abandoned and forced to live in the streets eating out of dumpsters. So Deathstroke was contracted by Brother Blood, leader of Hive and the Church of Blood. He eventually wanted Deathstroke to capture all of the Teen Titans for him. Deathstroke heard of Tara Markov and her powers, and he devised a plan to use her as a spy and, if needed, a bargaining chip. He also went to Markovia and intervened in an attempted public execution. Tara was tied up to a vehicle and dragged around while the mob chanted for her death, calling her a witch and a demon. Deathstroke stroke sliced the head off the man who was holding a gun to Tara's head, and she was later taken in as the latest member of the Teen Titans team. Halfway through in at number 5, Wonder Girl. Cassie Sandsmark was the second person to be called Wonder Girl, the first being Donna Troy. Cassie was the daughter of Dr. Helena Sandsmark and the Greek god Zeus. She spent most of her time at her mother's place of work, the Gateway City Museum of Antiquities, where she had a penchant for getting into trouble. She quickly befriended her mother's new employee, though, Wonder Woman, and was eager to help her. During a fight with a Doomsday clone and another battle with Decay, she created a costume and used magical acquirements, the Sandals of Hermes and the Gauntlet of Atlas to be exact, to help Wonder Woman, much to her mother's horror. Cassie later had the opportunity to ask Zeus for a boon and requested real superpowers. Zeus granted her request but gave Dr. Sandsmark the ability to deactivate them. Dr. Sandsmark, however, reluctantly accepted her daughter's wish to be a superhero and rarely, if ever, used this ability, and Artemis was assigned to be her teacher. Zeus giving her mom the ability to turn off those powers, though, is actually probably the most sensible thing someone has ever done in the DC universe, straight up. Like, good on you, Zeus, bro. This is like the most sensible version of Zeus I think I've seen, at least in this instance. And in 4, Damian Wayne. Sometime after Batman became a public hero, he fought Ra's al Ghul and the League of Assassins. During his adventure, he met Raz's daughter, Talia al Ghul. The two young adults fell for each other and, after a brief fling, they conceived a child. Bruce was unaware of the child's conception though and returned to crime fighting for years. Talia, on the other hand, taking advantage of the hero's impressive genes, believed their child to be the perfect heir, and the child was born and given the name Damian. Talia then used the League's extensive scientific resources to inorganically speed up the child's aging, giving him the physiology of a 10-year-old in less than 5 years, which was also used as a plot device to make sense as to why he would be meeting his father. Eventually though, when Talia deemed that Damian was ready, she allowed him to go to Gotham and meet his father, the Batman. Batman was surprised to learn that he had a secret son with a supervillain, but sought to learn more about the boy anyway. Despite his intense training to become a remorseless assassin, Damian was sympathetic to his father's vigilanteism in Gotham and volunteered to become his next sidekick. Batman agreed and granted Damian the mantle of Robin, his 4th ward to use the name, which should already kind of indicate the path of this thing kind of takes there, Damian, so maybe not serve yourself up as a human sacrifice for character building purposes next time. Getting close to the end, at number 3, Kid Flash. Bartholomew Bart Allen is a speedster from the year 2056 and the grandson of Barry Allen. When he came to the past, he joined the team under the name Impulse, and after Wally West's death, he took on the mantle of Kid Flash. He later joined the Outsiders. But given the dire situation that his time is in, Bart is serious and slightly jaded, who was greatly appreciative of his extended family in the past. Whether accidental or intentional, Bart constantly spoils information for people about the future, such as revealing Robin and Nightwing's identities to Beast Boy, and that Iris West Allen was carrying twins. This was also adapted into the CW show The Flash, where Bart and Nora are actually Barry's kids instead of grandkids, and they take on the name of the Tornado Twins over Dawn and Dawn, since they don't exist. I guess Flash writers thought that was a little too much. Penultimately, in at number 2, Raven. Raven, also known as Rachel Roth, is a superhero with magical abilities and a prominent member of the Teen Titans. Raven is a tele-empathetic, and she can teleport, send out her soul self, which can fight, like physically, manifest as a force field, manipulate objects and others as like with telekinesis, and it can also act as Raven's eyes and ears away from her body. Raven was born the half-breed daughter of a human mother named Angela Roth and the demon overlord Emperor Trigon. Eventually, she learned that Trigon was planning to come to her dimension and vowed to stop him. She initially approached the Justice League, which they refused on the advice of Zatanna, who sensed her demonic parentage. In desperation, she reformed the Titans as the new Teen Titans to fight against her father. The team was eventually able to defeat Trigon and seal him in an interdimensional prison. However, Raven still had to fight her father's influence because he wasn't actually completely destroyed, so she was still part demon. Yeah. And finally, in at number 1, Superboy. Superboy, aka Con-El or Connor Kent, yeah, you know why I mentioned that, was a genomorph, a binary clone of Superman and Lex Luthor, and a founding member of the Young Justice team. On February 25th, 2019, Superboy had revealed himself to the world and left the team in order to become a member of the Outsiders. After he became engaged to Miss Martian, the couple traveled to Mars to prepare for their upcoming wedding, but he historically sacrificed himself to protect the Martians from a gene bomb. Before this though, AQUALAD, Robin, and Kid Flash discovered the Xenomorph Project and Superboy, whom they liberated. The four youths stood up to their mentors and declared that they were ready to prove themselves as heroes. While Batman considered their argument, Kid Flash and Superboy stayed with him. Together they faced the Terror Twins at the Central City Mall, and they formed a covert ops team where they were given their own headquarters in Mount Justice. And they were introduced to Miss Martian, which would ultimately lead to Superboy's death, so sorry bro.
Coming in at number 10, we have the wild and wacky Gwenpool. One of the weirder characters from throughout the Marvel multiverse, Gwendolyn Poole is originally from an alternate reality that just might be our own, before somehow getting sucked into the main Marvel 616 universe through a comic book, granting her even more fourth wall breaking powers than even Deadpool would usually allow. With the ability to manipulate all aspects of her comic book world, such as physically interacting with lettering and caption boxes, Gwenpool is capable of literally rewriting reality to get the upper hand on her opponents, making her powers some of the most unusual throughout all of Marvel history, but still counting as some of the most powerful to ever come from a teen hero. Coming in at number 9, we have Hulkling, aka Theodore Teddy Altman. The secret son of both the Kree and Skrull empires and raised in secrecy on planet Earth, Hulkling was a member of the Young Avengers assembled by Vision's failsafe program following the disbandment of the original Avengers team. Despite having no connection to the green giant he borrows his naming scheme from, Hulkling is incredibly strong as a combatant and is made all the more powerful by the shape-shifting abilities granted to him due to his Skrull bloodline. In the heat of battle, he's capable of growing claws, wings, and extending his limbs in whatever way he needs to protect the people he loves. Speaking of which, coming in at number 8, we have Wiccan, aka Billy Kaplan. We can't talk about the Hulkling without talking about his magical husband as well, and when it comes to magic, Billy Kaplan is definitely not a boy to mess with. The reincarnated son of the Scarlet Witch, Wiccan's chaos magic allows him to warp reality without using any strict or regimented spells, rather improvising what he'd like to happen in the heat of combat. A favorite power of Billy's seems to be his electrokinesis as well, allowing him to generate massive amounts of electrical energy and showing that Wiccan's powers are so strong that he's even considered a candidate as the next Sorcerer Supreme on Earth. Whatever his future might hold, Wiccan's magic is definitely the kind you don't want to mess with. Coming in at number 7, we have the mutant known as Magma. Born under the name of Amara Aquila, Magma was a mutant from the secret country known as New Rome, and fittingly enough, soon became a member of the X-Men team known as the New Mutants. With the ability to manipulate molten rock and even cause earthquakes in a localized area, Magma is a master of the Earth's crust, and becomes invulnerable to heat and fire damage when she starts to glow and use her lava-controlling powers. On top of manipulating the Earth's crust, Magma is also capable of generating flames and controlling them with pyrokinesis, making Magma a fiery warrior who has also been trained heavily in the use of a sword. Jeez, is there any way this girl couldn't kill you? Coming in at number 6, we have the famous Kamala Khan, aka Ms. Marvel. Originally just a massive Avengers fangirl growing up with her parents in Jersey City, Kamala Khan's life was changed forever when the Terrigen mists spread across the globe and activated her hidden inhuman powers. Kamala was amazed to discover she was actually a polymorph and was capable of completely altering the size of her body. Inspired by her lifelong hero, Carol Danvers, aka the current Captain Marvel, Kamala Khan became the next generation's Ms. Marvel, using her powers as a member of the Young Avengers and becoming the type of hero she'd always dreamed of being. And with the limits of her polymorphing only seeming to become more powerful with age, who knows just how great of a hero Ms. Marvel can wind up becoming. Coming in at number 5, we have Jennifer Takeda, aka HAZMAT. Thinking she was just an ordinary girl with an ordinary life, everything changed for Jennifer when her boyfriend suddenly fell into a coma and it was revealed that he had contracted radiation poisoning. Jennifer soon discovered that the radiation was coming from her and was only going to keep getting stronger as she grew older. Thus, Jennifer became the hero HAZMAT HAZMAT at the newly unveiled Avengers Academy, building herself a suit that contained her radioactive nature while allowing her to shoot energy blasts from anywhere on her body. With the ability to take out a supervillain just by ripping a hole in her own suit, HAZMAT's powers are far beyond that of a typical superhero, which means she has to be extra careful to avoid being a danger to her own teammates. Coming in at number 4, we have Laura Kinney, aka X-23. Created by the Weapon X project when they were attempting to remake the success of Wolverine with a genetic sample that had a damaged Y chromosome, Laura is otherwise a perfect clone of Wolverine in every single way. While her early years were traumatic and occasionally brought her into conflict with Wolverine and the other X-Men, in recent years she's actually taken up the name of Wolverine herself, living up to the title that's inspired mutants for generations and helping carve out a new place for mutant kind in a new world. With her incredible healing abilities, the ability to generate bone claws on command, and the determination and stubbornness that seems to come with the Wolverine job, Laura Kinney is one of the most powerful combat-focused mutants around. Coming in at number 3, we have Miles Morales, the teenage Spider-Man. Having inherited essentially all of the same powers as Peter Parker after being bitten by a radioactive spider, Miles Morales has had lots of opportunities to show off his enhanced speed and strength and all the cool ways he can do whatever a spider can. But in an extra twist, Miles also receives some spider powers that are solely his own, such as being able to camouflage himself with his surroundings and his iconic venom blasts, in which he uses his body's natural bioelectricity to completely stun an opponent. No matter what power he's using, Miles has proven he's more than worthy of picking up the mantle of Spider-Man. Coming in at number 2, we have Hope Summers. The first mutant born since the Scarlet Witch's iconic M-Day moment, Hope was actually raised by her adoptive father Cable in the far future of the Marvel Universe, and only returned to her own timeline once her powers had begun to manifest fully. With the use of the Phoenix Force, Hope was eventually able to restore powers to much of mutant kind and undo the effects of M-Day. But even without the aid of the Phoenix, Hope's powers were incredibly unique, capable of both mimicking and altering the powers of other nearby mutants without any of the deadly side effects seen by other mimics such as Rogue. Hope's mutant powers are so useful in conjunction with other mutants that she's become one of the 5 most important mutants on all of the island of Krakoa, and is a key part of the process that now allows for mutant immortality. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have Doreen Green, aka the unbeatable Squirrel Girl. Now, on paper, Doreen's power set doesn't seem that impressive, giving her increased strength, speed, and agility, and gifting her with a bushy squirrel tail. However, it's the utilization of these powers that Squirrel Girl is apparently so gifted at, as this superhero has yet to be beaten by any villain in Marvel Comics. From MODOK to Thanos himself, all of these supervillains have been defeated by the unbeatable Squirrel Girl at one time or another, and while by this point it's just become a running joke that Squirrel Girl can defeat any villain off panel, it's still an incredibly cool power set that makes Squirrel Girl the most powerful teenage superhero in the Marvel Universe.
Number 10, Kid Cable. He might not be as powerful as the old man or as wise, or for that matter as powerful as some of the other youngsters on this list, but Kid Cable has a ton of potential. And to be fair, he is pretty powerful when it comes to outwitting people and working his way out of some pretty sticky situations. He also has the Summer family waiting in the wings to back him up when he needs. While their power is obviously not his own, having both his mom, Marvel Girl, and dad, Cyclops, as frequent allies, as well as his sister Rachel, is something that should be noted, because there are many times these days in the Dawn of X line where we see this family supporting one another and teaming up. Cable has his powerful telepathic and telekinetic powers, as well as his love of big guns and big swords, to help him qualify as one of the most powerful and sometimes resourceful teen mutants around. Number 9, Jubilee. Jubilee is one of those mutants who also has the potential to be even more powerful the older she gets. As a teenager, her powers were more unpredictable, but she still had that potential to create mass destruction using them. A lot of people think of Jubilee's powers as just being a fun display of fireworks, but she can actually create explosions on a subatomic level, meaning that she has the potential to go nuclear under the right conditions or with the correct amount of training. Her emotional connection with Wolverine gave Jubilee enough power to decimate part of Mandarin's castle when Logan was in danger. While Jubilee might not have seemed like the most powerful teen mutant, she definitely was capable of more than most give her credit for. So now she's pretty much all grown up though, with her son, who's currently a dragon, Shogo, to look after. But she was a teen once, and when she was a teen, she was pretty powerful. She was pretty cool. I like Jubilee, she's one of my favorites. Before we move on to our next point, just a reminder to give that like button a little click. Just give it a little click. It really helps us out on the channel and lets us know that you are loving these mutant lists. And who doesn't love mutant lists? I love mutant lists personally. Let me do more of them, please. Click the like. Number 8. Prodigy. Prodigy is one of the smartest mutants around, and even when he was depowered, he was still pretty powerful. David Elaine was always known for his intelligence, but when his mutant powers activated, he became even more brilliant. His powers allow him to telepathically absorb the knowledge and skill set of those around him. Initially, he worked towards not using his powers and keeping them a secret, trying to resist them because he felt that any knowledge gained this way while he was a student was sort of cheating, which to be fair, I guess it kinda is. Eventually, he ended up joining the New Mutants and enrolling at the Xavier Institute. Even when he lost his powers, he was still considered to be one of the brightest now depowered mutants around, as he still had the knowledge and skills that he had already absorbed and learned telepathically. He still held on to that. But now he's back to being a mutant because Krakoa. Number 7. X-23, or as we know her now, just Wolverine. As Logan says, you just call yourself Wolverine, there can be two of us. Laura Kinney was created and raised to be a fighting machine. It was all her mother could do to sneak in some normalcy to her daughter's routine. Also, the story of how her creator was forced into bearing her and literally become her mother in that way is pretty messed up. But then again, Laura's whole story is pretty messed up, so there's that. Even as a little kid, she was trained to become an unstoppable killer, and even when she found her way to freedom and the X-Men, as well as Wolverine, her genetic father, who she was a female clone of, she wasn't even safe from a world of killing. She was such a good killer that Cyclops couldn't resist recruiting her to the X-Force, the mutant team that was sent in for less savory and more secretive Black Ops missions. Number 6. Elixir. Josh Foley's powers first manifested when he was just a teenager, like most mutants. Right away, they were pretty powerful, allowing him to heal people who had life-threatening injuries on the verge of death. He was originally a part of the anti-mutant group known as the Reavers, who kicked him out after learning that he was a mutant, severely beating him when he wouldn't accept their rejection. He just wanted to hate mutants still, but no, you can't, because you are one. Sorry. His parents also disowned him, and with nowhere to go, he was forced to join the Xavier Institute, despite not initially being interested in joining his fellow mutants. Elixir's powers were shown to be so powerful, even from a young age, that he could even heal powers that had been lost, giving Rain, who he had a crush on at the time, her powers back after she lost them when he kissed her. And to people who are like, but healers, are they that great? Because what if they get hurt? He can even heal himself, so yeah, Elixir's pretty cool. Number 5. Kitty Pryde. It's really hard when we are talking about Kitty because I personally just think her mutant powers as they stand are so overpowered. Just in my opinion. We also have to consider that Kitty Pryde kinda got fast-tracked during her time on the X-Men team. When Kitty joined the X-Men, she was basically a teenager and she was already pretty powerful. In fact, she could walk on air back in the original X-Men days. And Kitty also didn't have any trials on other like young X-Men teams. She was kind of just like put on the X-Men right out of the gate. So that is pretty crazy. Straight out of the gate, she was working with the pros. Of course, over time, she has had some of her weaknesses tweaked and even removed, but in exchange for some of her other secondary abilities kind of being lost. Teenage Kitty also went on tons of adventures that were just always seemingly adding and building on her skill set list. And even now as an adult, Kitty, or Kate as she currently prefers to be called, is still one of the most powerful and often, in my opinion, underrated mutants that we have on the X-Men roster today. Number 4. Magik. Magik is insanely powerful even as a teenager simply because she spent so long training with the powerful magic user turned demon who kidnapped her years ago, Belasco. Belasco wanted to harness Ilyana's powers for himself, seeing her great potential. She eventually became so powerful that she defeated Belasco in his own dimension of Limbo. When she returned to her own dimension, escaping, she was no longer a little girl, though barely any time had passed on Earth while she was gone. It had only been seconds for her fellow mutants since she left, but for Magik it had been years, and she returned as a super powerful teenager with a strong connection to Limbo. While in Limbo actually, Magik is basically a god, as being in Limbo puts her closer to her power source and effectively makes her almost undefeatable while there. Number 3. Jean Grey. Even when we see any teen versions of Jean, they are known for usually being very powerful. While we might now know Jean as an adult woman who is immensely powerful when she needs to be, or when the plot requires her to go into Phoenix mode and kind of act as a deus ex machina, we also have met younger versions of her thanks to various time traveling shenanigans. Even as a teenager and a child, Jean is often portrayed as being exceedingly powerful. In fact, when she originally met Xavier, her telepathic powers were so great that he was forced to put up mental blocks to protect her from them until she was better equipped to handle such an elevated level of power. And after a few adventures with the X-Men, she did get those blocks removed. She was ready. She was ready for the power. Number 2. Hope Summers. Even as a baby, Hope was super powerful. Hope's just blowing everybody else out of the water. She's like, I've been powerful since I was a little baby and I didn't even know what was going on. She was like, object permeance, what's that? But also, I have immense power. As a teenager, Hope was destined to be the new host of the Phoenix Force, but was prevented from connecting with the Phoenix. However, she was still instrumental in the Avengers vs. X-Men story when she helped Scarlet Witch to erase the Phoenix Force from existence near the end of that story. Even though that doesn't really make much sense now, given that apparently Scarlet Witch isn't a mutant and Hope's powers are to kind of amplify or adopt the powers of other mutants in her area, so that doesn't really make sense now, but anyways. Like Rogue, she can take on other mutants' power sets and even take on multiple at a time. The difference being she doesn't need physical contact to do so, and it does not drain the powers of life energy or life energy of the mutants whom she is emulating. As a baby, she was powerful enough to heal Rogue with one touch, who at the time was dying and comatose. You also basically know you're powerful when you're a mutant when you get your powers earlier than your teen years. That just means you're like the most powerful. Number 1. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I mean, I can't have a list with a name like Teenage and Mutant in the title and not mention the TMNT. Even though I know everyone's probably like, but Amanda, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are not more powerful than Hope Summers. What are you talking about? But this is my list and I want them to be number 1. So that's how it goes. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are definitely some of the most powerful pizza-loving Teenage Mutant Turtles out there. They might not be as powerful in terms of taking other people's powers or becoming a host of the Phoenix Force, but I also bet if they were able to become the host of Marvel's Phoenix Force, were they in the same reality, they would potentially even give Jean and Hope a run for their money. The other thing that makes the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles so powerful is that there isn't just one of them, there's a whole team of them. And working together, there is almost no force of evil that they cannot stop. So many teenage powerhouses! And throughout the comics and movies, we've seen even more of these characters' backstories and their youthful potential explored. Honestly, there are just so many mutant prodigies out there, it's nice to highlight some of them and lift up some who may have momentarily been forgotten. Or at least their teen feats may have been forgotten.
Starting us off in at number 10, Gabrielle Kinney. Let's start off our list with a character who is very easy to adore, Gabrielle Kinney. First appearing in All New Wolverine issue 2 back in 2016, Gabrielle, who has also operated under the codenames of Honey Badger and Scout, is one of Wolverine's clones created by Alchemix Genetics. She's 13. Similar to Laura Kinney, she was heavily abused by her handlers, which her elder sister clones did their best to protect her from. She would escape while on a mission, and later her sisters would be killed by Taskmaster. She would then escape thanks to Laura, who brought her to New York City. Gabrielle has the genetic template of Wolverine, meaning she has the regenerative healing factor that he has, retractable bone claws, superhuman acute senses, and as a result of the torture she experienced at Alchemix Genetics from experiments, she is unable to feel pain. And at number 9, Nadia Van Dyne. Most of you Marvel fans out there will recognize that famous last name. Nadia Van Dyne was first introduced in 2016 during the events of Civil War II in a free comic book day comic. She is the 616 version of the MCU Hope Van Dyne, who would get her own solo series called The Unstoppable Wasp, which was unfortunately cancelled after 8 issues. So who exactly is she? Well, she is the daughter of Hank Pym and his first wife Maria, who had been abducted and killed by foreign agents. Nadia had been taken to the Red Room and was raised there, but managed to get her mitts on a Pym particle and escaped. Eventually she used parts of her father's costume after discovering that he was pretty much dead — Hank has had a rough decade, people — and created a wasp suit. She even befriends Janet Van Dyne. She eventually gets her US citizenship after joining the Avengers and takes on Janet's last name as her legal surname. She also started a program called GIRL, which stands for Genius in Action Research Labs, all meant to support and seek out women with genius intellects. And on top of all that, she has bipolar disorder. So in other words, Marvel is doing a lot with the character, and we sincerely hope that we get to see a whole lot more of her in the future. Moving on to number 8, Ramone Watts. Ramone Watts first hit the scene in Hawkeye Volume 5, Issue 1 from 2017 when her path crossed with Kate Bishop's. Ramone lives in the Venice neighborhood of LA with her brother Johnny, where the two run a surf shop. But it turns out she's got more on her plate than chill customers looking to catch waves. She has superpowers. Specifically, her skin is fused with vibranium, which gives her a living suit of armor. She would go on to join the West Coast Avengers and even got romantically involved with America Chavez in the process. Moving on to number 7, Fuse. Fuse, aka Johnny Watts, debuted in 2017 in Hawkeye Volume 5, Issue 2. He is Ramone's brother, who lives with her in Venice in LA. He ended up getting entangled with Hawkeye Kate Bishop, both professionally as a crime fighter and also romantically, eventually revealing to her that he had superpowers. He's capable of something called omnimorph duplication, which is the ability to transform your body into any substance you touch. So Johnny is able to gain attributes like super strength and super durability based on the physical properties of the substances that he touches. Eventually he would join up with the West Coast Avengers when Kate sought to reform the group and took up the codename of Fuse. Up next, number 6, Moon Girl. Moon Girl is really awesome. Created in 2015, Moon Girl is Lunella Lafayette, a 9-year-old African-American girl who is often described as the smartest character in the entire Marvel universe. She goes on adventures with Devil Dinosaur, her Crimson T-Rex pal, who she shares a mental link with thanks to being an Inhuman. She is a super genius, an inventor, and she's teamed up with the likes of Gwenpool, the Power Pack, and even became a member of Daisy Johnson's Secret Warriors during the Secret Empire arc. She's also expected to be getting her own animated series on Disney+, which at the time of this recording does not have an official release date yet, but we're still pretty stoked for it. Moving on to number 5, Gwenpool. Gwendolyn Gwenpool is not at all who you'd initially assume she was. While yes, she is a character from an alternate reality, the character has nothing to do with Gwen Stacy or with Deadpool, although her physical design originates from an amalgam of those two characters that appeared on a variant cover of Deadpool's Secret Wars issue 2. That was all thanks to the popularity of Spider-Gwen at the time. Now aside from that, there's no association. Gwenpool is actually a character who claims to be from our world. Yeah, reality. She's an interdimensional traveler who has vast knowledge of the Marvel Universe, is self-aware, and is a brilliant tactician. When she arrived to the 616, she didn't want to be an extra in the world of superheroes. So what did she do? She got herself a costume made, and because of her last name being Pool, with an E on the end, the tailor thought it was a play on Deadpool, and he made it to look Deadpool inspired. Since, she's done a lot, and was even a member of the West Coast Avengers alongside Fuse and Ramone Watts. Up next, number 4, Naomi McDuffie. Naomi is the most recent character on our list to debut, and the only one on our list from DC. Sorry, we know it's pretty Marvel heavy, but they do young superheroes so well. Anywho, Naomi debuted in her own self-titled series in 2019, in which she is a seemingly normal girl who lives in a small town in Oregon. Turns out she is not that normal. After Superman and Mongol are caught up in a conflict nearby her town, she finds herself tossed into a quest to unearth the truth about her own origins and her adoption, which is tied to the last time a superpowered individual was in her town. Turns out she is from an alternate Earth. She has godlike powers, and had been sent to Earth to be kept safe from a destructive conqueror called Zumbadu, who had colonized Earth in her home timeline. Moving on to number 3, we have the Young X-Men. While the Young X-Men are not technically new superheroes, they are new alternate versions of the original roster of the X-Men team members that we hadn't seen before. Let's backtrack for a second. So in 2013, things were pretty darn intense for the X-Men. Cyclops, who was considered a terrorist by many, had just murdered Charles Xavier. Jean Grey was dead. yet again. And Hank McCoy, aka Beast, was like, oh man, I need to do something to fix this storm we're in. So what did the big blue fella do? He built a machine that pulled the original 5 X-Men members from the past into the future in a very reckless plan to use these youngsters to remind the current iterations of those heroes who they truly were. And why they had become superheroes to begin with. Except it didn't completely turn out all that great. The younger versions of Cyclops, Jean, Angel, Iceman, and Beast were a little freaked out by how messed up some of their future selves were. They didn't want to have the same fate as their future selves did. So they ended up sticking around for about 6 years in the main continuity of the 616 before they returned to their own timeline. Oh, and Bobby Drake Iceman realized he was gay, which was a big takeaway from all of this that made headlines. Still though, imagine being young Jean Grey and finding out that you're gonna die multiple times and that your boyfriend Scott turns out to be really problematic and also a terrorist and kills your mentor. I mean, at least young Hank just had to deal with learning that he'd turn out to be blue, so he got off easy. It's like, I might look like a scary monster, but girl, you die like 5 times. Moving on to number 2, we have Spider-Gwen. Spider-Gwen may not be one of the newest characters on this list, but her impact on pop culture was so quick and immediate that to not have her in one of the top spots would be pretty criminal. Spider-Gwen, or rather Gwen Stacy of Earth 65, is a character who was first introduced in Edge of Spider-Verse issue 2 in 2014. She was bitten by the radioactive spider instead of Peter Parker, which forced her into becoming Spider-Woman. There was a lot of demand for her to get a spin-off series, which, when it was released, was critically acclaimed, praised for its tone, strong characterization, and vibrant artwork. Plus, everyone was cosplaying as Spider-Gwen. She also stirred up some major controversy in conservative circles in the US when her character fought a Donald Trump-inspired supervillain called MODOK. These days, she operates under the mantle of Ghost Spider with a series that is still going strong. And last but not least, in at number 1, Kamala Khan. Kamala Khan, aka Miss Marvel, is the exception to our rule. She came out in 2014. But also, we've had a 2014 and 2013 also on this list, so it's fine. They're important characters. Similarly, the impact that this character has had and her fairly recent debut get her to the top spot on our list. Miss Marvel is not only a really well-written character whose solo series has won a slew of awards and accolades, but she is also a superhero who represents an important shift in the comics industry, one that is much more inclusive, and explores diverse stories that have become more and more in demand as readers want to see themselves better represented in the panels. Kamala is the epitome of that. She is Marvel's first Muslim character, a teenage Pakistani American girl, the daughter of immigrant parents raised in Jersey City, New Jersey. She is an Inhuman whose latent genes were triggered after the Inhumanity storyline, and she assumes the mantle of Miss Marvel after her idol Carol Danvers had become Captain Marvel. She's also wildly popular to boot. Now, with news that she is getting her own MCU adaptation, we cannot wait to see where Kamala's story goes, and what kind of impact she is going to have on mainstream pop culture in the future.